At 05:47 local time, an Israeli F-16 call sign Iron raced through 20,000 feet over Thran towards a Revolutionary Guard command center. Over 90 other Israeli F-35I Adir, F-16 Baraks, and F-15 Rams were also descending on Tran, ready to turn it into a parking lot big enough for Iran's first buys. The pilot's targeting pod painted a clean infrared signature on the building below. Textbook conditions for what should have been a routine precision strike. And that's exactly when his radar warning receiver exploded. Phased array lock, 8 kilometers, fire control track in under 3 seconds. He had about as long as a deep breath to decide if he was going to live through the next 10 seconds. He broke hard, right flares out. Pure muscle memory. The kind of thing a pilot does the way you flinch when someone throws something at your face. But against a radar-guided Tour M1. Flares are roughly as useful as a screen door on a submarine. What saved him was the brake itself. 7 Gs of desperate geometry, shifting the aspect angle faster than the Tour seeker could correct. The missile streak passed. Close. Close as in the Grim Reaper just ding-dong ditched you. Iron lead was alive. Off-heading, wrong altitude. 8 JDAMs still on the rails. Targets behind him somewhere in the smoke. Alive was enough for now, but here's what made this particular term dangerous. It had already been destroyed. Satellite imagery confirmed it 2 days ago. Crossed off the target list. Nobody looking twice. What the satellites couldn't see was a different crew driving to the wreckage, parking in the crater of the confirmed destroyed target, and waiting. The Iranians had figured out something the coalition hadn't anticipated. They were reading battle damage assessments like restaurant reviews. 1 star wouldn't bomb again. It was brilliant. It also worked for exactly 90 seconds. The Adair overhead, the Narmak district. 30 seconds of dropping a weapon on the IRGC Intelligence Directorate. A functioning command node still linking Iranian security forces across the district caught the Tour emission on the ASQ-239. The Adir's electronic warfare suite, which passively listens for enemy radar signals the way a bat listens for echoes in the dark, and put the battery out of business. 90 seconds from the first pulse to silence. But the Tour crew had used those 90 seconds for something more valuable than shooting. They radioed. Course-bearing altitude heading the approach vector of the entire Barak formation broadcast on an IRGC frequency running through the civilian cellular network. A network the coalition hadn't jammed because destroying the phone system in a country you're trying to liberate is not exactly winning hearts and minds strategy. The TORM-1 crew was gone. Their data was already across the city. 12 kilometers west, an Adir over the Sattar Khan district rolled onto the IRGC Cooperative Foundation, the financial headquarters that bankrolls Iran's pet projects across the Middle East. The building sat wedged between 2 other buildings, flanking the aim point-like goalposts. One approach axis, the pilot threaded it. A Spice precision bomb punched through the 4th floor. The charity that funded rockets was now accepting donations in rubble. East of the city, ROM weapons officers at Parchin timed their bomb releases between inbound Tomahawk impacts, dropping ordnance in the gaps like the world's most dangerous game of Frogger. Southeast of Tehran, a Bavar 373 battery commander had been pulsing his Mirage 4 ISA search radar in 2-second bursts, just long enough to build a snapshot, never long enough to attract a harm. Now the Tour crew's final transmission gave him a bearing and altitude. He swung the Mirage 4 to that azimuth and powered to continuous fire control track. Think of the Bavar 373 as Iran's homemade answer to the Russian S-300. Siad 4 missiles, 125-mile engagement range, built domestically under sanctions, Whether that makes it impressive or terrifying depends entirely on your confidence in Iranian quality control. What is not debatable, on every Barak and Ram on that bearing just entered its envelope. The Adirs could survive it. The Bavar's radar couldn't hold a stealth track. The Baraks hauling dozens of bombs on external pylons whose radar cross-sections were a barn door versus a marble. Those pilots had a different problem entirely. The same Adir pilot who had just swacked the Tur M1 caught the Bavar going active on his sensors. Second retask in 2 minutes. He rolled south and put a weapon on it. 20 seconds later, the Mirage 4 went dark for good. 2 SAM engagements in 3 minutes. 0 assigned ground targets hit. The IRGC Intelligence Directorate in Nir, a building that was coordinating Iranian security forces across 4 eastern districts, was still standing, still functioning, still untouched. The Namar sector had no Adir overhead for the first time all morning. Below the SAM fight, the Baraks descended into 4 days of fire and smoke that made the city look like the mouth of hell itself. Granite flight. The second Barak 4 ship passed through 18,000 feet and watched the FLIR image turn to mud. 15,000 worse. 12,000. Half of Granite Lead's weapons were Spice precision bombs. Spice scene matching works like facial recognition for buildings. A preloaded image compared to what the seeker sees, accurate to less than 3 meters. Through 4 days of accumulated haze, the seeker saw the inside of a dirty aquarium. Scene match failed. GPS backup 10-meter circular arrow probable. But at this altitude, that wasn't good enough. The besieged doesn't operate from isolated military compounds, and their command centers share walls with apartment buildings. Literally share them. Load-bearing concrete. Families on the other side. Submeter puts the bomb through the correct window. 10 meters puts it somewhere in the neighborhood and crosses its fingers. They can't do that. The only sensors that could still see the ground were the Hermes 900 reconnaissance drones. You see here, orbiting below the smoke layer, feeding real-time infrared to every pilot in the package. Without the Hermes feed, the Baraks were dropping bombs on GPS coordinates they couldn't verify into neighborhoods where a 10 ME miss meant the wrong building. Meanwhile, 22 kilometers west, an Iranian Yak-130, armed with R-73E infrared missiles, was closing in on one of those drones with a solid lock in the rear cockpit. The Hermes had no countermeasures and no speed. A fat infrared return, doing lazy orbits at 8,000 feet. The aerial equivalent of a 3-legged horse at the Kentucky Derby. Every other sensor in the package, targeting pods, ASA radars, satellite feeds, could see through the darkness, but not through particulate smoke. Infrared radiation scatters off carbon particles, the same way headlights scatter in fog. The Hermes orbiting below the smoke layer at 8,000 feet was the only asset that could provide real-time ground imagery. If it went down, every pilot under Southern Throne was blind. The Adir transitioning back toward Nir after the Babar engagement spotted the Yak-130 on EOT's camera you see here. Closing on the Hermes seconds from firing, he dropped toward the contact. But in the gap he'd left open over Nir, the gap 2 SAM engagements had ripped wide open. A garage door was sliding up, and what rolled out changed the mission's calculus entirely. The Hermes caught it first. A heavy vehicle in a narrow NERC street. Missile vertical on the rail. 4 figures at the base connecting fuel umbilicals, and the unhurried efficiency of men who have practiced this 100 times under fire. Gadar 110. Iran's longest-range ballistic missile, with enough range to reach anywhere in Israel without breaking a sweat. The Gadar is easy to fire, roll out, erect, connect second-stage umbilicals. Fire. If this crew had been prepping inside the garage, and the calm, practice movements on the infrared feed suggested exactly that, this missile could be airborne in less than 30 minutes, aimed at Tel Aviv, Haifa, or Ben Gurion Airport, where the pilots' families were huddled in shelters listening to the sirens. None of that was supposed to happen. The CAOC, the Combined Air Operations Center, the command hub directing every aircraft in the strike package from a bunker hundreds of miles away. Retask Granite Lead, nearest Barak, nearest weapon. The besiege command center he was supposed to hit 6 kilometers north would have to wait or belong to someone else. Right now, a ballistic missile pointed at Israel took priority over everything. Single-seat cockpit, no weapons officer to handle the targeting while he flew. Right hand on the stick. Left hand punching GPS coordinates into a BU-31 that 10 minutes ago was programmed for a besiege command center. Reprogramming a JDAM in a cockpit built for one person's attention while descending through residual smoke. You managing the radar warning receiver and listening to a tactical frequency where 90 jets were all talking at once is about as hard as it sounds. Imagine changing the destination on your GPS while merging onto a highway during a thunderstorm. Except the GPS is a 2,000-pound bomb, and the highway is contested airspace over an entire city that's looking to put your face on a t-shirt. 14 kilometers north, a Barak over the Pastron district caught a 3-second gap in the smoke. A gust off the Alorts Mountains, shoving the haze just far enough for the spice seeker to match. Ministry of Intelligence, 3rd floor. The scene-matching algorithm found the building's roofline profile locked, and the bomb was already gliding before the smoke closed back in. Submeter hit through a window that existed on the seeker's display for less time than a sneeze. And over Levizusan, another Barak pilot orbited a confirmed IRGC logistics center with 2 jams on the rails and a problem the bombs couldn't solve. The Hermes feed showed foot traffic, civilians moving along the adjacent street, a block from the aim point. He circled, fuel burning, the window shrinking with every orbit. Clearance hadn't come. The building sat there intact, doing its job, while the pilot who was supposed to destroy it watched people walk past it and waited for a gap that might never open. Granite Lead's 7 original aim points were now orphaned, sitting on no one's target list, assigned to a pilot who was busy reprogramming a 2,000-pound bomb onto a ballistic missile he hadn't known about 3 minutes ago. The CAOC scrambled to redistribute. 2 targets rushed to a ROM flight already running heavy on fuel. The 3 reassigned to Baraks and adjacent sectors, who now had to squeeze extra aim points into attack runs already planned to the 2nd. 2 stayed unassigned. The cascade was just getting started. He got the coordinates in, rolled onto an unplanned attack heading 15,000 feet. Shallow dive faster than textbook. The GPS had to put the warhead within the width of a narrow street. Residential buildings on both sides. The tail wedged between them, with the Gare 110 pointing at the sky like the most dangerous flagpole in the Middle East. 2,000-pound pickled off the centerline pylon. Tail kit deployed. 4 fins steering through smoke. The Gadair 110 solid fuel stage ruptured on impact. Propellant ignited. The Hermes infrared feed whited out for 3 full seconds. A fireball that turned the narrow street into a blast furnace. When the image stabilized, crater-burning debris. The missile that was pointed at Israel reduced to scrap in a hole in the ground. 1 bomb spent. 7 JDAMs left for 7 aim points and 0 spares. The 4 minutes of reprogramming and maneuvering came out of fuel he wasn't getting back. His margin just crossed from tight to a number he didn't want to think about. 30,000 feet above the smoke. A ROM weapons officer was already working the problem. His APG-82 is radar you see here, an active electronically scanned array that builds ground maps using radar waves instead of light, meaning smoke and haze are essentially invisible to it. The way sonar doesn't care if the water is murky. Could map ground terrain through the haze like it wasn't there. He cross-referenced the radar ground picture against preloaded target imagery. I tightened the coordinates and pushed updated aim points down to the Baraks through Link 16, the encrypted data network that lets every jet in the formation share targeting information in real time. Like a group chat for fighter pilots, except every message is a set of GPS coordinates, not submeter, but close enough to put a bomb through the right block instead of the wrong one. The two-seat jet doing the targeting math for every single seat pilot who couldn't see his own targets. Over the Lavasan Mountains, the Adir that had bounced between SAM engagements and ground targets all morning put a Python 5, Israel's most advanced infrared guided air-to-air missile capable of locking onto a target from any angle and pulling turns that would knock a human unconscious into the Yak 130 between the engines. The Hermes continued its orbit, such completely unaware of what just happened behind it. The Adir pilot, who started the morning with a strike list and a full weapons bay, had now blown up 2 SAM systems and an Iranian aircraft in the span of 6 minutes. Assigned ground targets destroyed, 0. At this rate, he was going to come home with more hits than a pest exterminator and less mission completion than a husband sent to the grocery store with a list. Every retask had been the right call. The tour would have drowned of Barak. The Babar would have engaged the formation. The Yak would have blinded the entire wave. None of that changed the math on his fuel gauge or the aim point still glowing untouched on his display. He rolled back toward the Narmak. The IRGC Intelligence Directorate was still standing, but not for long. The eyes survived, and the Barak still had a feed through the smoke. But iron-lead rolling in on Tanars for this second attempt was about to discover the most dangerous weapons in this district weren't on radar trucks or missile launchers. They were on rooftops. Iron Lee descended through the smoke toward the BIS Regional Command Center in Tranpars, and the ETS picked up something on the adjacent rooftop that made the next 3 seconds very personal. A figure standing tubular shape on the shoulder, oriented at the descending Barak. MySOG 3 Iran's copy of the Chinese QW-18.